In this lecture, we're going to learn how to control the flow of a program. Thus far, every line of code we've written has been executed. We don't have control over the flow of logic in our program. What if we want to execute code when a condition is true? For example, specific pages should be locked unless a user is logged in. Another example would be displaying administration features for users with specific privileges. There are hundreds of use cases for performing logic based on a condition. Luckily, PHP provides a solution for controlling the flow of logic called conditional statements. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to the if keyword. This feature allows us to perform logic based on a condition. Let's read the documentation together. In the second paragraph, the following is stated. As described in the section about expressions, expression is evaluated to its Boolean value. If expression evaluates to true, PHP will execute statement, and if it evaluates to false, it'll ignore it. As we learned, expressions are lines of code that evaluate to a value. The if keyword expects a Boolean value. This is important to understand. PHP does not use integers, floats, or strings. Booleans are used to determine whether a block of code is executed. In a nutshell, PHP performs type juggling on expressions that aren't Booleans to convert the value into a Boolean. Let's dive into the code to understand this feature. Switch over to our project. In the PHP file, I'm going to remove the existing code. As always, be sure to leave the opening PHP tag intact. Next, imagine a scenario of an application that displays a student's grade based on their score. In the file, define a variable called score with an initial value of 95. In America, the grading system can contain values between 0 and 100. 100 is considered passing. 0 is considered failing. Our goal is to inform the student that they've passed or failed based on their score. After the variable, add the if keyword. Adding this keyword instructs our program to check a condition. The condition can be written by adding a pair of parentheses. Within these parentheses, we must provide an expression that evaluates to a Boolean value. Let's pass in the score variable. The score variable has the integer data type. Regardless, this is considered a valid expression for the if statement. The reason is simple. Behind the scenes, PHP performs type juggling for values passed into the condition. As we know, integers are converted into true if the number is not 0. Since 95 is not 0, the expression evaluates to true. If the expression evaluates to true, PHP executes a block of code. The block of code can be written inside a pair of curly brackets. Let's add these characters after the parentheses. Inside the brackets, call the variable dump function with the following value, a. As a side note, the code inside the conditional statement is indented. This formatting is not required but recommended. It adds clarity that this section of code belongs to the conditional statement. It's a common practice adopted by developers. We'll be following it too. To recap, if the expression evaluates to true, the letter A should appear. In the preview, the letter has been dumped. While that's great, it's not exactly what we were aiming for. The same grade gets outputted regardless of the number. For example, let's set the score to 1. An appropriate letter grade for this score would be an F. As it stands, the same letter grade appears on the page. By itself, using the score as the condition produces undesirable results. Luckily, we know how to resolve this issue. We can use comparison operators. They're perfect for our scenario. Instead of using the score, we're going to compare the score with a specific number. If the score lands above a threshold, the appropriate letter grade should appear. PHP offers various comparison operators. Best of all comparison operators produce a Boolean value, which is what the if keyword expects. In the conditional statement, update the expression to the following, score greater than 90. Let's look at the preview. This time, nothing appears. It's because the condition was evaluated to false. If the if statement receives a false value, the block of code nested inside is not executed. But what if we want to output an alternative message? After the closing curly bracket, we can add an else block. The else keyword is optional. If it's added, PHP will execute code inside the else block when the condition from the if block fails. There is one rule we must follow. The else block must be added at the end of the if condition. If we were to attempt to write code between these keywords, PHP would throw an error. Inside the else block, let's call the variable dump function with the following value, f. We can take this solution further by adding an elseif statement. In between these blocks of code, add the elseif keyword. So far, we have one condition. In some cases, we may want to write multiple conditions. PHP allows developers to chain multiple conditions with the elseif keyword. Unlike the if and else keywords, we can repeat the elseif keyword as many times as we'd like. However, we may only write this keyword after an if statement and before an else statement. Inside the parentheses, we can write a condition. Let's write the following condition, score greater than 80. Inside the block of code, call the variable dump function with the following value, b. Just for fun, let's add another else if statement. This time, the condition will be score greater than 70. Lastly, let's output the letter C with the variable dump function. Believe it or not, there are variations of the elseif keyword. It's completely optional to add a space between the words else and if. I'll remove the space as a demonstration. For most projects, you should stick with consistent formatting instead of mixing and matching keywords. Let's check out our preview. As you can see, the letter F has appeared. That's to be expected since the score is too low for each condition. PHP defaults to the code from the else block, which doesn't require a condition. Let's try updating the score to 95. Unlike before, the letter A has been outputted. But what about the letters B and C? PHP always starts from the top. If the first condition fails, it'll move on to the next condition. It'll continue this process in the order the conditions are written. Once it finds a condition that evaluates to true, it will not bother checking other conditions. Technically, the other conditions evaluate to true. However, since the first condition evaluates to true, the other conditional blocks of code are never executed, hence why we're getting a single letter. Conditional statements are extremely powerful. They allow us to control the logic flow by executing code based on a condition. There's one more thing I want to mention before moving on. Unlike before, we're not adding the semicolon character at the end of each block of code. If we're ever using curly brackets for blocks of code, the semicolon character is not required. Using the closing curly bracket will suffice. Just thought you should know in case you noticed that we're omitting the semicolon. In the next lecture, let's continue exploring other features for controlling logic flow.